Greetings and welcome back to L.A. Quill. Today we're diving into Chapter 5 of Arianna's tale. Damuk! Emperor Rocken shouted for the third time, beginning to lose the tight rein he had on his temper. His son finally turned in his direction, obviously having difficulty pulling his gaze from the flames before him, looking embarrassed. My apologies, father. My attention was elsewhere, Damuk replied contritely. His gaze returned to the fire in the Emperor's study almost of its own volition. He didn't see the flames. Instead, he saw a girl with flaxen hair and emerald eyes dancing before him. He saw her wherever he looked. His feelings for her were bordering on obsession, and he knew it. He just wasn't ready to admit it to anyone else. Rocken dismissed his admirals with a swift wave of his hand. He was done with them anyway, and they hadn't had anything useful to say. Well, nothing he hadn't already known. He studied his son carefully, proud of the man he had become, and of the emperor he would one day be. Damuk was a strong man, equally talented in magecraft and in the arts of war. He was a competent commander of his troops and fought alongside them whenever he could, earning their respect and loyalty. And of course, Damuk was fiercely loyal himself. To his country, to his men, and certainly to his father. Of late, however, he'd become obsessive and withdrawn. He'd been that way ever since he'd returned from the west. Damuk had led a convoy of ships west in an attempt to discover what was really happening to the ships they had sent along the coast. No one really believed that every ship met its demise upon the rocks. Some of their captains might have been caught in the rocky coastline of the northern area of the Aryan Republic, but surely not all. It was beyond anything reasonable to assume that every ship in the last 10 years accidentally ran aground or got caught in a storm. They were right, as Damuk had discovered during his voyage. Their ships were being destroyed by a creature everyone thought was a myth, including the Emperor and his son. And if anyone other than Damuk had told the Emperor that this creature existed, the messenger would have been dismissed as mad and released from his service immediately. The creature was the Muradin, an enormous snake-like beast said to have been worshipped by the ancients as a god. Rocken had been able to search his son's mind and had seen the creature for himself, confirming what his son's words had already revealed. There was only one way a creature that old and powerful could have been awakened. A very powerful spell, assisted by blood magic, and directed by a skilled and powerful hand. Rocken, quite possibly the most powerful mage in either the Apatal Empire or the hated Yarian Republic, doubted he himself could have done it, not with all the resources at his disposal. But then he didn't use blood magic. He refused to use blood magic, and had forbidden its use within the Empire. If a formidable mage resorted to the power inherent in pain and death, who knew what that mage could do? He suspected that the Republic was behind it. He was just surprised that they had a mage that powerful, and that he himself still didn't know who he or she was. He was also curious to know how they were keeping the creature from attacking coastal villages when the Muradin was said to be vicious and indiscriminating, killing all in its path. And as grateful as he was for his son's survival, he couldn't help but wonder why Damuk was spared of all those who had been killed by the creature before now. A powerful mage in his own right, Damuk couldn't even answer that question. All his son knew was that the creature seemed to change its mind about consuming him at the last instant. It had stared at him for several moments as he clung to a piece of driftwood, and then had disappeared beneath the waves, not to be seen again. All 7 ships in the convoy had been destroyed. Damuk was the sole survivor. If Rocken hadn't known better, he would have thought that it was fate. Or maybe it was fate. He knew that his son was not religious in any way, but Rocken had seen too much to discount the idea of divine intervention. Sometimes the Lady and the Lord did take it upon themselves to interfere in the lives of their children. He would keep those thoughts well away from his son. The pair could discuss anything from politics to policy to women, anything except religion. That thought turned his mind away from the creature and back to his son's current state of mind. What is it that has captured his mind so? Rocken pondered. He decided to ask. Damuk. He had to repeat himself twice to get the attention of the prince. This was truly beginning to get annoying, and it showed in his expression. The Emperor was not a patient man, and Damuk had already pushed him beyond his limit today. Damuk started. He was not intentionally ignoring his father, and did not want his father to believe that he was. Damuk shook his head slightly and spoke carefully to his father, controlling his thoughts with an iron will. Again, my apologies, my lord, he said with a slight bow in the Emperor's direction. You have my full attention. Rocken seated himself behind his large desk, his eyes never leaving his son. In the 30 years since his son's birth, he had never seen him so distracted, not even as a child. He considered what that meant for a moment, went over in his mind every conversation he'd had with his son since Damuk had returned, and then came upon what he thought might be the answer. Damuk had told him of the young girl who had cared for him, the Western healer who he had taken to his bed. She had been unwilling, but she was a Westerner after all, no better than a slave. There was no reason to dwell on her. But it occurred to him that perhaps his son still thought of her. She was young, exotic, and probably beautiful, or Damuk would never have betted her. He had very particular tastes when it came to women. And perhaps there was something more to it. Perhaps a soul bond? That was a shocking thought. He couldn't confirm it, of course, but he kept the idea in the back of his mind. It would explain his son's obsession. So, he said softly, you still think of her? Damuk jumped a little, surprised at his father's perceptiveness, though he shouldn't have been. Nothing escaped the Emperor of the Abital Empire for very long. He thought of denying it, but quickly dismissed the idea. It wouldn't serve him well and might just infuriate his father. If there was one thing Rocken didn't stand for, it was lying. Damuk had known that since childhood. Besides, they were close enough, father and son, that he didn't really mind if his father was aware of his train of thought. Lowering himself into a chair opposite his father, he sighed and admitted the truth. I can't stop thinking about her. Her golden hair, her emerald eyes, and, well, she's absolute perfection. I thought that one night would be enough to rid me of her, but it wasn't. He fell silent then, almost pouting, which was unusual for the imperial crown prince. He wanted her, and not just for a single night. He wanted her forever. Just the very idea that he was attracted to her made him wince. He had thought himself immune to feminine wiles. Of course, perhaps the fact that she wasn't using her wiles to attract him was what did it. Whatever it was, he couldn't forget her. When he was honest with himself, he knew that he didn't want to. Rocken raised an eyebrow. Do you feel guilt over what you did? It was unlike his son to have regrets, but everyone had a few. Maybe his treatment of the girl was one of them. Damuk shook his head. No, exactly the opposite. I would do it all over again. Except, perhaps, I would have taken her with me when I left. That or killed her. He knew in his heart that he wouldn't have killed her, no matter what he'd told her or what he'd just told his father. And tried to make it across the Republic with a hostage, one who surely would have betrayed you if given the chance. It was Rocken's turn to shake his head. No, you would never have made it out of there alive, and you had no real reason to kill her. His son sighed again and shrugged, trying to hide just how deeply he felt. You're probably right. Damuk certainly didn't sound happy about it, even to his own ears. Rocken was silent for several moments before speaking again. He thought he had an idea that would solve his son's problem and contribute to the Empire. We have a need to end this stalemate between the Empire and the Republic, and we need to do it now. You say the Sakana Valley has about 200 residents, but no garrison. Damuk nodded. Good. We are in need of more slaves, and I prefer to get those from the Republic if at all possible. Take 4 regiments through the ice shelf and make sure you have enough mages to make it through safely. The Republicans don't station mages anywhere except Sitha, so you shouldn't encounter any resistance that you can't handle. Burn the village to the ground, and bring back its residents as slaves. All of them, if you can. Their livestock as well. It will announce to the Republic that we have not forgotten their insult, one which has stood for 300 years now. Rocken stroked his chin, considering his last comment. Perhaps it will provoke them enough that we can finally end this thing. The gods know that we have had no luck in ending it ourselves. Sometimes I wonder if the gods themselves are against us. Damuk smiled and rose, deciding to ignore that rather religious statement. Religion was one subject father and son could not discuss without coming to blows. We will leave immediately. He bowed and left hurriedly, already imagining Arianna's surprise when he arrived once again, this time at the head of an army. And that's our tale from L.A. Quill today. If you enjoyed this chapter, let me know your favorite moments in the comments. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.